18 months after the Battle of Earth, the war against the Silencers was nearing its end. The human fleet, now joined by ships from 7 formerly enslaved alien species, had pushed deep into Silencer territory. Fleet Captain Daniel Wells stood on the bridge of his ship, the Liberator, looking at the massive structure on the main screen. The Silencer home base was unlike anything humans had ever built, a vast ring surrounding a dying star, drawing power from its final emissions. "All ships report ready," said his first officer, Linda Mason. Daniel nodded. This would be the final battle of the war. Intelligence gathered from liberated colonies indicated that this was the Silencers' central command, the heart of their empire. "Signal the Allied fleet," he ordered. "Begin the attack sequence." Around him, ships from Earth flew alongside vessels of strange and beautiful designs, the contributions of the Navorians with their crystal ships, the Kaltar with their living vessels, and 5 other species that had risen up against their former masters. The Silencers had gathered their remaining forces around their home base. Once they had seemed unstoppable, their technology far beyond anything humanity had faced. Now, they were fighting for survival. As the Allied fleet approached, the Silencers deployed a new weapon, a massive pulse that created a silence bubble larger than any they had used before. But Maria Vasquez, now the head of a multi-species research team, had anticipated this. "Activate the Harmony shields," she ordered from her command center on the science vessel. The Allied ships glowed with energy as their shields began to vibrate, not just to counter the silence, but to amplify sound. The massive Silencer weapon failed, its energy dissipating harmlessly against the new defense. The battle was fierce but one-sided. The Silencers, once so confident in their superiority, found themselves outmatched by the combined knowledge and technology of 8 determined species. After 6 hours of fighting, the Silencer commanders sent a message in all languages of the Allied fleet. "We surrender. We ask for terms." Daniel Wells was chosen to lead the delegation that boarded the Silencer command station. They were met by the Silencer High Command, tall, ethereal beings that communicated through patterns of light on their translucent skin. "Why did you attack us?" Daniel asked through a translator. The lead Silencer's skin flickered with complex patterns as it answered. "We need the neural energy of other conscious beings to survive. Our star is dying. We have harvested consciousness for thousands of years." "There could have been other ways," Daniel said. "Cooperation instead of conquest." "We did not know how," the Silencer admitted. "Until we met humans, no species had ever fought back effectively. You changed everything." The terms of surrender were strict but fair. The Silencers would release all remaining slaves and withdraw to their home system. They would be provided with technology to stabilize their dying star, technology developed jointly by human and alien scientists. 1 week later, representatives from all liberated worlds gathered on the former Silencer command station. Lisa Bennett, a quantum communications engineer from Earth, stood before a control panel that would link all the worlds that had been silenced. "Today, we restore the voices that were taken," she said to the assembled delegates. "Today, the stars speak again." She activated the system. Across thousands of light years, communication channels reopened. Messages flew between worlds that had been isolated for nearly 2 years. Families reconnected. Information flowed freely once more. Admiral Morrison, now the human representative to the newly formed Interstellar Commonwealth, watched with satisfaction. "What happens now?" asked Krell, the representative of the insectoid Kaltar. "We rebuild," Morrison said. "We learn from each other, and we make sure that nothing like this ever happens again." As the new interspecies communications network hummed with activity, Earth's role in the galaxy had been transformed. Once just a single planet with a handful of colonies, humanity was now recognized as the species that had stood against the silence, not just for themselves, but for all thinking beings. The stars, once silenced, now sang with the voices of 8 species working together, and it had begun with Earth's unstoppable Armada answering the call that no one else could hear. 1 month after the Battle of Earth, the Liberation Fleet approached Proxima Centauri. The colony had been the first to fall, and now it would be the first to be freed. Commander Nicole Franklin led the mission from her ship, the Avenger. She had lost her brother when Proxima went silent, and her face was set with determination as the fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the edge of the system. "Scan for silencer ships," she ordered. Her sensor officer, Ryan Patel, studied his screens. 4 large vessels in orbit around the main colony. Several smaller ships on the surface. Nicole nodded. Just as intelligence predicted, they've spread their forces thin trying to hold all 17 colonies. The Liberation Fleet consisted of 200 ships, all equipped with the latest version of the Silent Thunder technology. Maria Vasquez herself had joined this mission, monitoring her systems from a science vessel near the back of the formation. "All ships, battle formation," Nicole commanded. "Remember, our priority is the safety of the colonists." The human vessels moved forward, spreading into an attack pattern designed to surround the enemy ships. The silencers detected them almost immediately and moved to intercept. "They're using a different frequency," Maria reported from her ship, "just as I predicted. Sending adjustments to all vessels now." The countermeasures updated just in time as the silencers fired their weapons. This time, the silence waves had no effect at all on the human ships. Nicole allowed herself a small smile. "All ships, engage targets. Ground forces prepare for deployment." The space battle was short and decisive. The silencers, cut off from reinforcements, couldn't stand against the determined human attack. Within 2 hours, all 4 enemy ships had been destroyed or disabled. The ground assault was more difficult. Security specialist Vincent Rodriguez led the first team to land on the colony's main settlement. What they found shocked them all. The once thriving city was now a work camp. Thousands of humans were being forced to build strange structures. They moved like machines, their eyes empty, their movements jerky. "They'd got some kind of control devices on them," Vincent reported, zooming in with his helmet camera to show small metal discs attached to the base of each person's skull. "Can we remove them?" Nicole asked from orbit. "We need to capture one of the silencers to figure out how," Vincent replied. "Wait, I see movement in that central building." His team approached cautiously. Inside, they found something unexpected. Not just humans, but members of 3 other alien species, all wearing the same control devices. After a fierce firefight, Vincent's team captured a silencer commander. It was the first time humans had seen one of the enemy up close. The silencer was tall and thin with pale, almost translucent skin. It had 4 arms and no visible mouth. Maria Vasquez studied the prisoner and the control devices. "These aren't just for control," she explained later. "They're draining something from the victims, some kind of neural energy." "They're using people as batteries?" Nicole asked, horrified. "Not exactly. It's more complex. They seem to be harvesting neural patterns, experiences, emotions, memories." Maria looked grim. "They feed on consciousness itself." With this knowledge, human scientists quickly developed a way to safely remove the control devices. As the freed colonists recovered, they shared their stories. "There are others," said Eliza Ford, one of the colony leaders. "Other species who've been enslaved. The silencers have been doing this for thousands of years." Nicole reported these findings to Admiral Morrison. "We're not just fighting for ourselves now," she explained. "There are at least 6 other intelligent species being held as slaves in silencer territory." Morrison's face was solemn on the video link. "Then we'll free them too. Every colony, every planet, every species. We'll break the silencer's power completely." As the Liberation Fleet prepared to move to the next colony, Nicole watched the recovering colonists board transport ships back to Earth. Many others volunteered to stay and fight. "I want to help free the other colonies," said Eliza. "I need to do something with this anger." Nicole understood. The war had changed. It was no longer just about survival. It was about justice, not just for humanity, but for all the species who had suffered under the Silencer's cruel rule. The battle for Earth began in fire and light. The Silencer ships, caught by surprise, broke formation for the first time. Their perfect unity shattered as Earth's Armada attacked from all sides. Fleet Admiral Heather Morrison commanded from her flagship above North America. Unlike the aliens, human ships didn't rely on sound-based communications. They used light signals and pre-planned maneuvers that the Silencers couldn't disrupt. Thunderbird Squadron, move to Sector 4, she ordered. Draw their fire away from the population centers. Lieutenant Commander Peter Garcia led his squadron of 20 fast attack ships in a tight formation. His pilots were the best Earth had to offer, trained in secret for years. Remember the plan, he told his pilots. No verbal communications once we engage. Use only light signals. The Thunderbirds dove toward a cluster of Silencer ships that were positioning themselves above New York. The alien vessels turned to track them, firing waves of their silence weapons. But the human ships were ready. Their shields vibrated at shifting frequencies, disrupting the alien attacks. The Thunderbirds split into pairs, each targeting a different enemy ship. Garcia's vessel spun and twisted, avoiding enemy fire while his weapons officer locked onto the Lid Silencer ship. They fired, and bright energy beams struck the alien vessel. Its strange skin seemed to absorb the attack at first, but then cracks appeared, spreading quickly across its surface. The Silencer ship exploded in a silent blast of blue light. All across Earth's orbit, similar scenes played out. The human fleet had the advantage of surprise and home ground. The Silencers, for all their advanced technology, had never faced an enemy who could counter their primary weapons. Admiral Morrison watched the tactical display as the battle unfolded. They're pulling back, she noted. Squadron leaders, press the advantage. Don't let them regroup. The largest Silencer ships began to retreat toward the outer planets. The smaller vessels formed a defensive screen, buying time for their commanders to escape. On one of the retreating command ships, the Silencer leaders communicated in ways humans couldn't understand. They had never failed before. In 1,000 conquests across the galaxy, their silence weapons had always prevailed. No species had ever developed countermeasures so quickly. Earth's ships pursued the fleeing Silencers. The battle spread across the solar system, from the orbit of Earth all the way to Neptune. The humans were relentless, driven by memories of their silenced colonies. After 3 days of continuous fighting, Admiral Morrison called a temporary halt to the pursuit. Earth's fleet regrouped near the orbit of Jupiter. Damage report, she requested. We've lost 217 ships, her aide reported, but we've destroyed or disabled over 600 of theirs. The remaining Silencer forces have retreated beyond Neptune's orbit. Morrison nodded. It was a victory, but the cost had been high. Each lost ship meant dozens or hundreds of lives. What about our colonies? She asked. No change. They're still under Silencer control. Morrison studied the star map showing the 17 human colonies that had been taken. The Silencers still held them all. Prepare the Liberation Fleet, she ordered. The battle for Earth is won, but the war has just begun. Back on Earth, people celebrated the victory. For the first time since the colonies went silent, there was hope. Video of the battle spread across the planet. Human ships breaking the Silencer formations, the enemy retreating in disarray. In her lab, Maria Vasquez didn't join the celebrations. She was already working on improvements to her countermeasures. They'll adapt, she told Project Director Jones. Next time, they'll be ready for our technology. Jones nodded. Then we'll need to be one step ahead of them. How soon can you have the next version ready? 2 weeks, she said. Maybe less. Good, Jones replied. Because Admiral Morrison is planning to take the fight to them. We're going to liberate our colonies. Across the solar system, the human fleet prepared for the next phase of the war, taking the fight to enemy territory and freeing the captured colonies. The the stars would not remain silent for long. The first clash between humanity and the silencers happened in the space between Earth and Mars. Admiral Howard had sent only a fraction of Earth's hidden fleet, a probe to test the enemy's strength and tactics. The silencer ships were strange curved shapes that seemed to bend light around them. They moved in perfect formation, like dancers in a deadly ballet. As the human fleet approached, the silencers deployed their weapons. Wave after wave of energy pulsed outward from the alien ships. On the human vessels without the new countermeasures, systems began to fail. Communications went dead. Weapons wouldn't fire. But the lead ships, equipped with Maria Vasquez's silent thunder technology, pushed forward. Their shields vibrated at precisely the frequencies needed to disrupt the silencers' weapons. "It's working," said Captain Joe Foster on the lead ship. "Our systems are holding." The battle was brief but fierce. The human ships with working countermeasures managed to damage several silencer vessels, but they were still outnumbered. After an hour, Admiral Howard ordered a retreat. "We've learned what we needed to know," he told his captains. "Their silence weapon can be countered. Now we prepare for the real fight." The silencers pursued Earth's ships at first, but stopped at the halfway point between Mars and Earth. It seemed they were cautious after meeting unexpected resistance. On Earth, Maria Vasquez worked frantically to improve her countermeasures. The data from the battle showed her design worked, but it needed to be stronger. "We need to change the resonance pattern," she explained to her team. "Their weapons adapt. Ours need to adapt faster." The factories hidden throughout the solar system produced upgraded shield systems day and night. Every ship in Earth's Armada was being fitted with the new technology. Meanwhile, the silencers gathered their forces around Mars. More of their ships arrived daily from the direction of the outer colonies. They seemed to be preparing for a massive assault. 3 weeks after the first battle, Earth's complete Armada was ready. 10,000 ships of all sizes hovered in defensive positions around the planet. The largest vessels were stationed at strategic points, while smaller, faster ships formed a mobile defense network. President Carter addressed the planet one last time before the expected attack. "Today we face the greatest threat humanity has ever known," she said, her voice steady. "But we face it together, and we face it prepared. For 50 years, the nations of Earth have worked in secret to create a force capable of defending us against any threat from the stars. Today, that force will prove its worth." The silencer fleet began moving toward Earth the next day. Their ships had formed into a massive arrow shape, aimed directly at the heart of humanity's home. Admiral Howard put his final strategy into action. Earth's fleet didn't move to engage. Instead, they held position, forming a spherical defense around the planet. "They expect us to attack," Howard explained to his officers. "We won't. Let them come to us, where our defenses are strongest." As the silencers approached, something strange happened. The human fleet vanished from their sensors. The silent thunder technology had been modified to hide Earth's ships until the last possible moment. The silencers, believing they faced minimal resistance, moved into low Earth orbit and prepared to deploy their ground forces. That's when Admiral Howard gave the order. "All ships, execute Operation Thunderclap." Around the planet, Earth's hidden Armada decloaked simultaneously. The silencers suddenly found themselves surrounded on all sides by thousands of human vessels, their weapons primed and ready. Before the aliens could react, Maria Vasquez activated the Planetary Defense Network, a system of satellites equipped with her latest countermeasures. A pulse of energy swept outward, temporarily neutralizing the silencers' weapons. "All ships," Admiral Howard commanded, "attack now. For Earth. For all humanity." And the stars, so long silent, were filled with the thunder of humanity's answer. 18 months after the Battle of Earth, the war against the silencers was nearing its end. The human fleet, now joined by ships from 7 formerly enslaved alien species, had pushed deep into silencer territory. Fleet Captain Daniel Wells stood on the bridge of his ship, the Liberator, looking at the massive structure on the main screen. The Silencer home base was unlike anything humans had ever built. A vast ring surrounding a dying star, drawing power from its final emissions. "All ships report ready," said his first officer, Linda Mason. Daniel nodded. This would be the final battle of the war. Intelligence gathered from liberated colonies indicated that this was the Silencer's central command, the heart of their empire. "Signal the Allied fleet," he ordered. "Begin the attack sequence." Around him, ships from Earth flew alongside vessels of strange and beautiful designs. The contributions of the Navorians with their crystal ships, the Kaltar with their living vessels, and 5 other species that had risen up against their former masters. The Silencers had gathered their remaining forces around their home base. Once they had seemed unstoppable, their technology far beyond anything humanity had faced. Now they were fighting for survival. As the Allied fleet approached, the Silencers deployed a new weapon, a massive pulse that created a silence bubble larger than any they had used before. But Maria Vasquez, now the head of a multi-species research team, had anticipated this. "Activate the Harmony shields," she ordered from her command center on the science vessel. The Allied ships glowed with energy as their shields began to vibrate, not just to counter the silence, but to amplify sound. The massive Silencer weapon failed, its energy dissipating harmlessly against the new defense. The battle was fierce but one-sided. The Silencers, once so confident in their superiority, found themselves outmatched by the combined knowledge and technology of 8 determined species. After 6 hours of fighting, the Silencer commanders sent a message in all languages of the Allied fleet: "We surrender. We ask for terms." Daniel Wells was chosen to lead the delegation that boarded the Silencer command station. They were met by the Silencer High Command, tall, ethereal beings that communicated through patterns of light on their translucent skin. "Why did you attack us?" Daniel asked through a translator. The lead Silencer's skin flickered with complex patterns as it answered, "We need the neural energy of other conscious beings to survive. Our star is dying. We have harvested consciousness for thousands of years." "There could have been other ways," Daniel said. "Cooperation instead of conquest." "We did not know how," the Silencer admitted. "Until we met humans, no species had ever fought back effectively. You changed everything." The terms of surrender were strict but fair. The Silencers would release all remaining slaves and withdraw to their home system. They would be provided with technology to stabilize their dying star, technology developed jointly by human and alien scientists. 1 week later, representatives from all liberated worlds gathered on the former Silencer command station. Lisa Bennett, a quantum communications engineer from Earth, stood before a control panel that would link all the worlds that had been silenced. "Today, we restore the voices that were taken," she said to the assembled delegates. "Today, the stars speak again." She activated the system. Across thousands of light years, communication channels reopened. Messages flew between worlds that had been isolated for nearly 2 years. Families reconnected. Information flowed freely once more. Admiral Morrison, now the human representative to the newly formed Interstellar Commonwealth, watched with satisfaction. "What happens now?" asked Krell, the representative of the insectoid Kaltar. "We rebuild," Morrison said. "We learn from each other, and we make sure that nothing like this ever happens again." As the new interspecies communications network hummed with activity, Earth's role in the galaxy had been transformed. Once just a single planet with a handful of colonies, humanity was now recognized as the species that had stood against the silence, not just for themselves, but for all thinking beings. The stars, once silenced, now sang with the voices of 8 species working together. And it had begun with Earth's unstoppable Armada answering the call that no one else could hear. The refugee ships from Mars arrived on Earth battered and smoking. Medical teams rushed to help the survivors, while military officials pulled aside anyone with useful information. Kelly Russell sat in a cold room at Defense Headquarters, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. Her husband Alan had stayed behind with the last defense force on Mars. She hadn't seen the end, but she knew there was no way he could have survived. "Mrs. Russell," said General Winters, sitting across from her, "I know this is difficult, but we need to understand exactly what happened." Kelly nodded. She was an engineer, trained to observe and report clearly even in crisis. Their weapons are sound-based, or at least that's what they seem like. They create zones where all electronic systems fail. Then all sound disappears. People inside those zones can't even hear their own voices. She took a shaky breath before continuing. After they create these silence bubbles, they send in ground troops. The soldiers aren't like anything I've seen before. They don't seem to need to communicate. They move as one, like parts of a single body. General Winters leaned forward. "And the people they capture? They're taken to the ships. No one who's been taken has been seen again." Kelly's voice cracked. "We managed to get sensor readings during the first wave. The silence fields operate on specific frequencies. They're not magic. They're technology. Complex, but still technology." This information spread quickly through Earth's defense network. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock to develop countermeasures. In Washington, the highest government and military officials gathered in a bunker 500 feet below the White House. President Carter sat at the head of a long table, looking at the grim faces around her. "How long do we have?" she asked. Admiral John Clark, now in charge of Earth's orbital defenses, cleared his throat. "The silencer fleet is still in Martian orbit. They're sending smaller ships to the surface, probably gathering resources. At their previous pace, they would reach Earth in 2 weeks. But they're being methodical. I'd estimate 1 month." "Is that enough time?" the president asked. Retired Admiral William Howard, whose hair had gone completely white since the crisis began, spoke up. "It has to be. We need to activate the Prometheus Protocol." The room went silent. The Prometheus Protocol was not officially supposed to exist. It was a contingency plan so secret that even most of the people in the room had only heard rumors. "That's extremely risky," said Defense Secretary Jack Bennett. "The Asian coalition will see it as a violation of the Lunar Treaty. The Lunar Treaty won't matter if we're all dead or enslaved." Admiral Howard replied, "Madam President, we've been preparing for this kind of threat for decades. The time has come." President Carter studied the reports in front of her, then looked up. "Tell me exactly what the Prometheus Protocol involves." Admiral Howard nodded to his aide, who distributed sealed folders to everyone at the table. "For 50 years, Howard explained, we've been secretly building underground facilities on Earth, hidden bases on the Moon, automated factories in the asteroid belt, all producing ships and weapons designed to counter threats exactly like this one." "How was this kept secret?" someone asked. "Compartmentalization. Eye-guided manufacturing. Black budgets hidden in plain sight," Howard said. "Only a handful of people knew the full scope. We used the cover of mining operations and scientific research." The president looked troubled. "You're saying we have a hidden fleet?" Admiral Howard's face showed no emotion. "Not just a fleet, Madam President. An armada. Thousands of ships with weapons systems specifically designed to counter advanced hostile technologies." "And you believe they can defeat the silencers?" she asked. "I believe they're our only hope," Howard answered. "But we need to begin deployment immediately. The system was designed to activate gradually, to avoid detection. We don't have that luxury anymore." President Carter was silent for a long moment. Then she straightened her shoulders. "Activate the Prometheus Protocol," she ordered. "And may God help us all." Junior Lieutenant Samantha Powell hadn't slept in 36 hours. She stared at the screens in Luna Observatory, her eyes red and burning. 6 weeks had passed since the colonies went silent. 6 weeks of waiting, wondering, and preparing. "You should rest," said her colleague, Keith Martinez. Samantha shook her head. "Something's wrong with the long-range sensors. Look at this pattern." Keith leaned over her shoulder. On the screen, tiny dots moved across the black of space, coming from the direction of Proxima Centauri. "Ships?" he asked. Too many to be ours, Samantha replied. And they're moving in a formation I've never seen before. She sent the data to Earth Defense Command. Within an hour, the observatory was filled with military personnel, their faces tense as they watched the approaching fleet. General Lisa Winters stood with hands clasped behind her back. How long until they reach Earth? At their current speed, 5 days, Samantha said. The general nodded. Try to make contact. For 3 days, Earth sent messages in every known language and format. No response came. Instead, the strange ships accelerated. Dr. Gregory Miller worked in a room below the observatory, surrounded by screens showing fragmented signals captured from the approaching fleet. As Earth's best xenolinguist, he had been called in to decode any possible communications. I think I have something, he said on the 4th day. The room fell silent as he played a series of sounds. They weren't words exactly, more like music with a pattern. Then images appeared on the main screen, humans in chains, colonies in ruins. It's an ultimatum, Dr. Miller said, his voice shaking. They're showing us what happened to our colonies. They want us to surrender. No one spoke. The images showed scenes from New Eden, Ta City, and all the other silent colonies. People were being marched into strange ships. Buildings were destroyed. And over everything, a strange shimmer in the air that seemed to absorb all sound. Can we fight them? Someone finally asked. General Winters looked grim. We've been preparing since the first colony went dark. Every ship, every weapon we have is ready. But based on what happened to our colonies, their technology is far beyond ours. The alien fleet reached the edge of the solar system the next day. They moved past Pluto without slowing. Earth's outermost defense stations went silent as they passed. In her apartment in Washington, Samantha watched the news with millions of other people. The president was addressing the world, her face solemn but determined. We will not surrender, President Diane Carter said. Humanity has faced challenges throughout our history, and we have always persevered. We have prepared for this moment. Our forces stand ready. What the president didn't say, what few people knew, was that Earth had a secret, something hidden in plain sight for decades. On the 5th day, the alien fleet reached Mars. The red planet had been colonized 50 years ago and was home to over 2 million people. Defense Captain Alan Russell commanded the Martian garrison. He knew they couldn't win, but they could buy Earth time. All units, defensive positions, he ordered as the alien ships appeared in Martian skies. The battle lasted less than a day. The aliens used weapons that created bubbles of silence, zones where no electronic device worked, where no sound could travel. Then they used energy beams that left nothing but ash. Engineer Kelly Russell, Alan's wife, led the evacuation of civilians. Only 1 in 3 ships made it past the alien blockade. On Earth, people watched in horror as Mars fell. The survivors brought stories and data, precious information about the enemy's weapons and tactics. The aliens, now called the Silencers by the media, paused their advance after taking Mars. Perhaps they were consolidating their position. Perhaps they were giving Earth time to consider surrender. They didn't understand that humans never truly surrender, and they couldn't know about the secret Earth had been keeping, a secret about to be unleashed. Fleet Commander Olivia Gardner stood on the bridge of her ship and stared at the blank screen. The silence was strange and wrong. For the past 5 years, she had patrolled this sector near Ta City Colony, and there had always been chatter. The quantum communication network never went down. It couldn't go down. That was the whole point. Yet here she was, listening to nothing but the soft beeping of the ship systems and the worried breathing of her crew. Try again, she ordered, her voice steady despite the growing knot in her stomach. Communications Officer Ben Morris tapped at his console. Still nothing, Commander. It's like Ta City just disappeared. Olivia crossed her arms. She was 38 years old, with short brown hair that never seemed to stay in place and eyes that had seen too many strange things in deep space. But nothing like this. When did we lose contact? Exactly 43 minutes ago, Ben said. It wasn't gradual. 1 second they were there. The next, gone. Specialist Nathan Rivera looked up from his sensor station. His dark eyes were wide. Commander, I detected a massive energy spike just before we lost contact. It was unlike anything in our databases. Olivia leaned over his shoulder to look at the readings. The energy pattern was strange, almost like a sound wave, but visible across multiple spectrums. Could it be some kind of natural phenomenon? She asked. Rivera shook his head. No natural event moves like that. It was directed, controlled, and he hesitated. Speak freely, specialist. It's moving. Whatever caused this is traveling through space. And it's not just Ta City. I'm getting similar readings from New Eden Colony. They went silent 5 minutes ago. The bridge fell quiet. New Eden was in the opposite direction, which meant whatever was happening wasn't random. It was spreading. Put me through to Earth Command, Olivia said. Ben tried. The quantum link to Earth still worked, but it took 15 minutes to get through. The face of Admiral John Clark appeared on screen, looking as worried as Olivia felt. Gardner, we're getting reports from all over. 17 colonies have gone dark in the past 3 hours. Whatever this is, it's spreading fast. Sir, Rivera detected energy patterns before each blackout. I think we're looking at some kind of weapon. The Admiral's face grew grim. The science team agrees. We're calling all patrol ships back to Sol system. We need to prepare. Olivia felt cold. Prepare for what, sir? For whoever or whatever is silencing our colonies. 3 days later, they received the last transmission from Proxima Centauri, the closest colony to Earth. The message was broken and filled with static, but the fear in Colony Director Frank Miller's voice was clear. They came without warning. Huge ships, like nothing we've seen. They used some kind of pulse that killed all our systems. Then they landed and, God help us, they're taking people. Not killing. Taking. Earth must prepare. They're heading your way next. Then Proxima Centauri went silent too. On her ship, now racing back to Earth, Olivia watched the star map with growing dread. One by one, the green dots representing human colonies turned red, then black. The silence was spreading toward Earth like a wave. What do we do? Asked Ben, standing beside her. The young man's face was pale. Olivia had served in the United Earth Defense Force for 20 years. She had fought pirates and handled first contact with 2 alien species. But this was different. This was an enemy that moved in silence and left nothing but silence behind. We warned Earth, she said. And then we fight. But as she watched another colony go dark on her screen, she wondered how anyone could fight an enemy that could silence the stars themselves.